I think two things have happened. First of all, when President Trump met President Xi at Mar-a-Lago in Florida, they had very extensive discussions. And President Trump made it clear that the U.S. priority in Northeast Asia is North Korea, because we think North Korea is close to getting an ICBM, and we think that is very threatening, not only for our allies, South Korea and Japan, but also for China and the United States. So we would very much like China's cooperation in trying to inhibit North Korea from getting an ICBM and going ahead with development of a nuclear weapon. So I would say that was the first priority, and that's not related to economics, that's related to strategy. But the second thing is that President Trump really was out of date with some of his facts. It turns out that China did try to suppress its currency in the period of 2003 to 2014. But after 2014, many people wanted to bring money out of China, and as they were selling renminbi to get yuan or dollars, they were actually depressing the currency. So I think two things happened. President Trump's priorities changed. His focus became North Korea. And second, the actual economic situation changed so that China became a country where the currency was depreciating, not appreciating. I think it depends what happens to the trade balance. One of the things that is disturbing many specialists is that China has announced this new program for 2020, where China is going to press for high technologies, which will be benefiting from state-owned enterprises and from state investment. And the problem with that is that if that's stressed and becomes important, then it will be very difficult for some American firms in the same fields to compete, because the Chinese companies will not want to use American parts and technology. So that concerns many Americans. And the second issue is what is happening to wages in China. If wages continue to go up, then Chinese goods will be more expensive, and therefore the U.S. will have greater ability to compete. If wages in China stay constant or actually were to go down, then China would become more competitive. I don't think that's going to happen. I think that wages are going to go up. I think Chinese goods are going to be less competitive. Under those conditions, then the U.S. Can compete more effectively. Well, I think President Xi probably made it clear that China could make some concessions, but it was not going to make major concessions. And I think what happened with President Trump was that he began to realize he had two clusters of issues. One cluster was economic, one cluster was strategic, and that he was more concerned in many ways about the strategic issues in North Korea than he was about the economic issues. Right now, China has a trade surplus of over $300 billion. So that's a very, very large surplus. And it has a big effect on the American labor market, because there are many people who would be employed in those industries but cannot be employed because China's products are more efficient. So there are two routes. Either China buys more or China exports less. But I think there has to be an agreement on that in some way.